Stretch there real quick, but yes. So for those who know or don't know, me and Tax, our backgrounds in gaming is a variety, but heavily or strongly in fighting games and the such, and of course, Sonic, Mega Man, and such, but fighting games. So we like to bring in news regarding the FGC that we see fit to, things we should, give topics to discuss about, and one being of which because I want to talk about this approach in the right way, and not focus more on other details than certain details than others. But we said this, so we said this in another episode about Mike Z making a comment in terms of like a George Floyd joke that was very in poor taste, and he went out of his way to say, oh, then they're like, oh, I know black friends have black friends, whatever, and this is the type of joke I was trying to make. And then he continued to double back and say, you know what, I apologize, for what I said. And following that incident, he did a donation drive, or he took from the Skullgirls mobile game, took the proceeds over a certain period of time to make a donation to Black Lives Matter. He made a $38,000, rounded up around there, a donation to Black Lives Matter and the movement. And still, there are still people at FGCs like, yeah, that's cool, but what you said still doesn't excuse you from like that, where you're at, like that doesn't really excuse or make up for what you did. That needs to be kind of addressed. So like, so people on the same page, and just kind of going from there. Now we have FChamp, who is known to be the notorious heel of the FGC, especially big in the Marvel 3 days. He comes out, makes a tweet, also similar to what Mike Z did from Lab Zero and Skullgirls creator. Something about watermelon, all watermelon lives matter. Really dumb joke. Really just, FChamp being dumb, going on Twitter, just I say just getting attention. And pretty much this gets fuels the on Twitter the cancel culture train, or the ban train, I guess in this case for the FGC, because similar to what we saw with LTG and Cyril Blast, in this order, FChamp makes the comments, people blow him up, people are already calling him out pre-apology, don't think you can make an apology and things will go better. He calls other people out in the FGC as well, which is very interesting in terms of just the mob mentality of ganging up on him. And then the bans come in. He gets banned from East Coast Throwdown, and follow that, he gets banned from Combo Breaker next year. And then as soon as those things happen, he comes out with a video. He's like, I didn't mean to say those things. I didn't mean that. I didn't think this would happen, blah, blah, blah. And to the same effect, Capcom came out and banned them as well from their future tournaments for whatever time being. Which, by the way, cool, whatever, that was done. But at the same time, Mike Z, his game Skullgirls is an Evo. And he made those same comments in the same light that FChamp did, but he didn't receive the same kind of treatment. People are kind of looking over it. People are saying like, okay, so wait, so Mike Z gets a pass because he stood up by Sonic Fox? Was it because he donated? And like, even people are still feel some type of way, still do, about it all. And I think where we want to just kind of focus the conversation on, like me and Tax, before we even, hit record, we brushed on it, and I think it's the fact that the pandering and the cancel culture and the FGC just needs to stop. I think, all parts of the conversation aside, were the things that they said in question, wrong and out of line? Yes. Do I agree with those views or whatever that they said? No, of course not. No one doesn't. It's not for the betterment of the community. But this type of mob mentality of jumping on one person for something they said, especially, I know on Twitter, outside of a tournament, whatever, leads those type of actions. But then But not only did they lead these type of actions that may, we could question are fair or not, but then it also goes down the line of, well, then who are on the receiving end of these actions? Because people were even calling for Skullgirls to be taken out of Evo lineup over what Mike Z said. And then again, like people saying one of the reasons Skullgirls and Mike Z is still there is because Sonic Fox and is vouching for him, and he made that donation. Like, it did not take like a day. It did not even take like a day for like FChamp to start getting banned from events. But no bannage, no nothing. Skullgirls taken out of lineups and tournaments, other things of the such. When Mike Z made his comments, and even Sonic Fox coming out saying, "Oh, those two comments are not the same." My bad. I was just giving the whole spiel.
I don't remember what Mike Z said about George Floyd specifically, but regardless, it
was like a joke in poor taste. Same thing. It's like it's literally the same. Like him and FChamp is literally no difference. It doesn't matter what was said. It was just like they just made jokes around the situation. Kind of, it's just like, yo, that it's like seriously. Like it's one of those things. Like both of them, seriously. I mean, to the thing said, especially for Mike Z's part, I think even if my opinion, his joke was a little more pressed on the a little more insensitive. But then again, that's just me and kind of how I perceived it compared to FChamp.
Here's my thing, right? I think they should both be banned.
Yeah.
And only because it's like, I get that you're joking, but like anybody should, comedians have a thing where they read the room. Anybody should be able to read the room and know your audience. You should know what we're going through as a nation right now, and you should know that those comments aren't necessarily appropriate. I think banning is maybe a bit excessive, but at the same time, it's like if that's the punishment you're giving people, then make it consistent across the board. The problem with it is that there's no real stopping people from this kind of mob mentality. Like it is kind of where it is, and it's kind of out of hand already. They banned LCG for what he said, and then they found out that Ceroblast was shooting the N-word recklessly. They banned Ceroblast too. They're like, do I think what FChamp said was like super damning? No, I'm like, this is his role. He's supposed to stir shit up. That's the kind of person he is. Like, this is what wrestling does, and it's entertainment. I think the comment was stupid. I think it was completely in poor taste, and I think of the punishment they're giving people for saying stuff like that is banning. Then yes, he deserves it. I feel like it's a bit harsh, but at the same time, I don't think Mike Z should be exempt either. Like, granted, Skullgirls is in Evo for the first time and probably the last time. So like, it's like, cool, you got an Evo, you put Sonic Fox in the game, and I'm not really sure why. But then also, it's like you donated the money to Black Lives Matter. It's like, all right, you just quickly cleaned up. And this is why I said that like corporations.
Pandering.
This is why I said like corporations don't give a fuck about you, right? At the end of the day, it's like Mike Z said what he said. Now, is he a racist? Who knows? Does he like black people? Who knows? Does he really feel the way he said about it? Who knows? But at the end of the day, it's like he didn't do all that because he wanted to save face. Is that his company was at stake? You know what I'm saying? Like if they were like, "Oh, we're pulling this from Evo," and then Steam got wind of what he said, and Steam's like, "All right, we're pulling this game off because we don't support the views of the developers." Like then him and his company and the livelihood of the developers would be at stake.
Fuck.
Yeah. If Mike Z were FChamp, he wouldn't have done all that. If he were in the position FChamp were in, he wouldn't have done that. He was just a regular player. No, not even the heel. Let's take it apart. If he was just a regular player of fighting games,
true,
he would have said, "I'm sorry," and that would have been it. He wouldn't have been raising money for Black Lives Matter, all that stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, like that was kind of pandering and stuff like that. And this is where I get into like the white guilt shit. Like I hate that shit. It's like, oh, I'm horrible because I'm white, or like, like no, you're wrong because of what the fuck you said. I'm like,
You see, like yeah, what you said made you sound like an ass. Like that doesn't, regardless of skin tone, like it's like real talk. Like we are not. Well, listen, like we will call anyone if they sound like an ass. Black, white, red, blue, green, doesn't matter. Transparent. We don't care.
yeah,
Like
I think Sonic Fox is a little jaded. He might not like FChamp because of other stuff FChamp might have said. It has a better relationship with Mike Z than he does FChamp. But at the end of the day, insensitive comments are insensitive comments. Like poorly timed insensitive comments are poorly timed insensitive comments. And if this is what we do to people who do stuff like that, then we need to be consistent across the board. I don't care if he puts you in the game as an NPC. I don't care if he personally like saved you from a fire and saved your life or something like that. At the end of the day, it's like,
or saved your cat from a fire.
there's
Like
bias in what he's saying, because a joke about a man that was killed due to police brutality and saying watermelon lives matter, I actually would go as far as to say is that Mike Z's comments were worse. But what I
yeah,
will say is like both of them were insensitive and poorly timed. So like I think Sonic Fox is clearly being a bit biased in that, but that's his prerogative. At the end of the day, though, it's like these developers put money into things like Evo and Capcom Pro Tour. So are are they going to give Mike Z and Lab Zero Games any contributions they got from them back if they take Skullgirls out? Like, of course they're not going to, because they're not going to take them out. Because Evo, like we said a number of episodes ago, is in a weird financial space where it's just like, okay, you're not making all the money from the registrations. The registrations and stuff like that and the sponsorships are what keep you going. If we weren't in a pandemic, Skullgirls wouldn't even be on Evo.
right. No, yeah. If Evo was going to be live, if Evo was going to be as it was in Vegas for the weekend, there wouldn't be Skullgirls in Evo. There wouldn't be them fighting herds in Evo. Even still say Killer Instinct. Like, yeah. And I think just to that effect, it's just, people need to realize, like, hey, like we get it. It's just, it's a weird time. Everyone, in the world, and I think what's really important is like these, like, for communities like the FGC and stuff to kind of be more solidified in the way they like in the way they want to proceed going forward, as a community, for the games and for the betterment of the community FGC as a whole. It's just like, it's not a good look when you see favoritism, because it is favorite. It's like, in the end of the day, it's favoritism. It's just like you're favoring Mike Z because as in his individual as a position, his position as an individual, Skullgirls, Lab Zero, in Evo, money's come in for Evo. Skullgirls was selling games because it was released on Steam. Like everything like that was, because of the pandemic that happened.
Well, look at it this way, right? Mike Z, as an entity, has more value to the FGC than FChamp does.
And FChamp does, exactly.
Yeah, and it's the sad truth because FChamp is just a player. Mike Z is a developer. He has, Lab Zero. They contribute to the FGC, community, like, some tournaments, get money towards their pot and stuff like that to have a Skullgirls tournaments and stuff like that. Evo has gotten contributions from Lab Zero. It'd be naive to think otherwise.
And in the past as well, like it's not the first, like when remember the big donation drive between Melee and Skullgirls for the last spot?
Yeah.
And Evo a couple years back. And
yeah.
And I mean, all that money was raised for charity and whatnot, but it was the fact that the matter was that it brought attention to Evo, attention to Skullgirls, Melons, everything was going on. So there was just Eva was benefiting from Skullgirls in general around that time, regardless if the money was going directly to them or not. So there's even that past relationship that even I think also plays a role. So like we said, I think we're just with in regards to this situation, um, I personally think the FGC needs to kind of the cancel culture needs to stop coming after players when you're not coming after every player. Needs to stop like these targeted witch hunts. Um, you know, just needs to stop. It's gonna destroy the
You know what?
FGC from the inside out.
The
That's
thing
what's
is,
gonna happen.
it's the climate of
Who
the world
clip
right
people?
now. Like, it's not even just the FGC. Like, we live in a cancel culture, which is crazy because it's like, yo, bro, like the idea of canceling black people has had for decades, and suddenly Twitter is out and people are running with the idea of canceling people. But cancel culture and censorship are going hand in hand, and don't be surprised if a lot of our prominent figures that we enjoy start getting canceled for one reason or another. Like, we may not have the yipes of the world in the FGC because of cancel culture stuff, you know. But yipes might be able to benefit from people just genuinely liking him, rather where Champ, again, what he said was stupid, but they're of the similar ilk of like the urban kind of trash talking, that kind of stuff. And it just so happened that he said something stupid, and people were just looking for a reason to like get rid of him anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, it's true. He's not also liked by a lot in the community, like overall. So like it's like these personal drivers that push these outcomes, but shouldn't. It should like
like
that
let
just shouldn't be the case.
let some stuff about like people's favorite personalities or players come out, and they'll do what they can to kind of bury it or like push it aside or minimize it. But like Champ just unfortunately was on the end of not being favored by a lot of people. If accusations or like messed up stuff came out, like let somebody like, I don't know, like Ultra David say something like, "Oh, um, all lives matter" or some shit.
Fuck nigga, like say fuck
No, they'll
niggas.
be
I
like,
don't know
"Yo,
that. I'm
Ultra
like,
David,
whoa.
you gotta chill. Like, yo, we know what, like, you can't be saying stuff like that. Like, yo, you don't really mean that, do you?" Champ
Do
say
you,
something like
Ultra
that,
David?
bro, he's instantly canceled.
Instantly, instantly.
Yeah, like a lot of this stuff, it all depends on if you like the person or not, man. And that's the truth of it. Like, we're not looking unbiasedly at the actions. We're looking at if we like the person or not. And Champ unfortunately fell on that, and Mike Z like is making out with that. Like, oh, because Mike Z has the favor of Sonic Fox, he may not be getting the full backlash that he is entitled to.
Yeah, and I want to bring attention. And because we gotta to the real PD to hold accountable is the individuals in the FGC because because we make up the FGC is the players do, and I think a lot of times like we look up to certain players and individuals, but at the same time it's okay to admire them if they help you get into the community, but it's not. But through that admiration and like what's that word? Was it like yeah, looking at them at those lenses, like through that lens, I feel like we unwillingly or unknowingly give them power to kind of like influence decisions made in the FGC. Because I've seen some people, I'm like, honestly, you may be like a really good top placing player, but at the same time, you're a player and you really shouldn't be, if anything, you shouldn't really have grounds to speak on this since you're in no other different position than FChamp than to like influence what things should be or like what happened. And that's what it feels like. Everyone is out once everyone wants their turn on the gavel. That's what it is. And I don't think that it should be done that way if people want to if you want people want to how to say
bro.
guide
Like
the community.
we live in a world where people dug up an 8-year-old tweet from Trump's, like someone that's on like Trump's PR council 8 years before they were on Trump's PR council to try to cancel Domino's for thanking them for a compliment they gave them. Like if
What?
people will find, that's why I said, bro.
What?
I said it earlier in this. Like people are looking for something wrong, and they're going to like act upon it emotionally, not
That
even logically
is
about it. Because at the end of the day, it's like, all right. At the end of the day, both Mike Z and Champ said words. No one was inherently hurt or harmed or killed in the actions. Like warnings, yes. Maybe like a temporary ban, like, hey, like, you know what, we got to exclude them from a couple events or something like that. But like, they're getting the same treatment like infiltration got for something that is completely different. I'm like, so, words hold up the same kind of weight as like, say, like even the Noel Brown got for like being violent, and then accusations against like, with not being consensual with women. Like,
and
I'm
there's
like,
even
we're
and there's
like,
stories that was consensual. I'm not even nor even get close to
well,
that.
so, but that's my thing. Is like we're not being logical in it because everybody's on an
Exactly.
emotional high. The reactions are high as well. So it's like, oh, you said this, so we're gonna ban you from everything. And then like, all right, well, other people have done far worse to achieve that. So I'm like, I don't think it's very fair of the punishment. But if this is the punishment you're giving to everybody, then you need to be consistent across the board.
Yeah, and I just don't like how like these events unfold, and then Capcom just comes out of the cut and has been like, it just hands you they do the like they just hand
Again,
you
these
the L.
corporations don't care about you. They just want to be on the right side of stuff. Like,
It's
bro,
so
if they
stupid.
think that you want FChamp banned, then they're gonna ban FChamp because they want your money. And if it means they gotta, like, if it means sacrificing FChamp, then guess what? The bottom
His
line
ass
means
is
more
going
than
to the
FChamp.
graveyard.
Exactly. Like
Shit.
they don't care about you as a person. They just care. Oh, well, you guys are upset about this. Do we think this is going to stop you from buying our products? Then we're going to get this out of the way. This is another Aunt
Shit.
Jemima.
This is another Aunt Jemima.